Have you ever noticed how easily we react these days? A message left on read for too long, a delay in someone's tone, or a glance that felt a little too sharp, and suddenly we're spiraling, angry, anxious, offended, as if the world is poking at every nerve we have. But here's something worth reflecting on. True strength is not in how loud we shout or how fast we clap back. It lies in how calm we remain when everything around us is in chaos. This is a different kind of power, a quiet, almost invisible one. And it might be the most valuable strength you can develop. The Stoics understood this over 2,000 years ago. Epictetus once said, "It's not events that disturb us, but our judgments about them." Think about that. It's not the thing itself, the betrayal, the insult, the delay. It's what our mind makes it mean that causes the pain. Let's say someone disrespects you in public. Your instinct might be to fire back, protect your image, restore your ego. But pause for a second. Who are you really fighting? Them? Or the voice in your head screaming that you're not enough if you don't defend yourself? We're often not reacting to the moment. We're reacting to old wounds we never noticed were still bleeding. Maybe it was a parent who never listened, a friend who left when you needed them most, a time you were embarrassed in school and never forgot how it felt. So now, every time something small happens, your nervous system lights up as if it's a war. But here's the twist. Most of the time, there's no war at all, just echoes. The calm person, the one who pauses, breathes, and chooses not to react, they're not weak. They're just not controlled by ghosts. The world will try to pull you in 100 directions. Algorithms want your outrage. Gossip demands your judgment. Pressure tells you that if you're not constantly on, you're falling behind. But real power is being able to say, "I see what's happening, and I don't need to lose myself in it." That's the kind of strength no one can give you, and no one can take away. It doesn't mean being passive or pretending nothing affects you. It means choosing your battles, your words, and your emotions with wisdom. It means knowing that calm is not the absence of emotion, it's the mastery of it. Imagine walking into a storm and realizing you are the stillness inside it. That's who you become when you stop being a puppet to every text, every trigger, every ego hit. The next time you feel yourself tightening up, ready to react, to defend, to snap, ask yourself, is this truly about now? Or am I repeating a story that's been playing for years? Because when you stop reacting, you start seeing. And in that space between stimulus and response, you meet the real you. Let's be honest, most of us live on edge. Someone ignores our text, we spiral. A coworker sounds short, and we assume they hate us. A loved one withdraws, and suddenly, we're anxious, restless, doubting everything. But what if I told you this constant reactivity isn't who you really are? It's not weakness. It's not a flaw. It's a program, one that was installed in you long before you had a choice. You see, from a very young age, we were taught to be hyper-aware of how others responded to us. When we pleased people, we were praised. When we upset them, even accidentally, we felt punished, ignored, or rejected. Slowly we learned, my emotions depend on how others feel about me. A silent parent made us feel invisible. A teacher's harsh words made us feel unworthy. A playground rejection left a mark that followed us into adulthood, often unnoticed, but always active. So now, as grown-ups, we're still stuck in that old loop. We overthink a pause in conversation. We replay that look someone gave us. We go from calm to chaos in seconds, All because we never learned how to sit with discomfort without reacting. But here's the thing. Reactivity isn't strength. It's survival mode. It's your nervous system doing what it was trained to do. Scan for danger, interpret signals, prepare to defend. And while it may have helped you survive emotionally as a child, today it's the very thing keeping you trapped. Trapped in defensiveness, trapped in cycles of regret, trapped in a belief that you're not in control of your own mind. Every time you react automatically, whether it's snapping at your partner, over-explaining in fear of judgment, or ghosting someone who triggered you, you're reinforcing the same hidden belief. I don't choose. I just react. And that belief? It's exhausting. It drains your mental and emotional energy, bit by bit. You spend your days in a tug-of-war between your true self and your wounded self, the one that's still trying to please, prove, or protect. Reactivity always follows the same loop. Trigger gives interpretation, gives emotional surge, gives regret, gives repeat. Someone cuts you off in traffic. Your brain decides, they disrespected me. You feel rage, maybe even yell or swerve. Then 5 minutes later, you feel silly, or drained, or both. But you'll do it again tomorrow, unless something changes. So here's a gentle but powerful truth. You are not the reaction. You are the awareness behind it. And the moment you begin to notice the pattern, to pause before the interpretation takes over, that's when freedom begins. This isn't about becoming numb or emotionless. It's about reclaiming your agency. It's about choosing a response that reflects who you want to be, not what your pain wants to repeat. Imagine this. You get triggered, but instead of lashing out, you breathe. You observe the emotion like a storm rolling in, but you don't get swept away. You say to yourself, this is that old story again. I see it now. That moment of pause, that tiny space between stimulus and response, is where your power lives. It's not glamorous. No one sees it, but that's where transformation begins. So the next time you feel yourself spiraling, ask gently, am I reacting from my past or responding from my truth? Because when you stop being a puppet pulled by old fears, you start becoming the author of your present. And that, my friend, is where real peace begins. You've probably had this moment before. Someone says something that hits the wrong nerve. You feel your chest tighten. Maybe your jaw clenches, your thoughts race. And before you even realize what's happening, you've said or done something you didn't mean. That split second between trigger and reaction, that's where your entire life can change. See, the truth is, you're not powerless. You're just running on autopilot. You're reacting based on emotional patterns built years ago. Patterns that once protected you, but now, they keep you stuck. But here's the good news. You can rewrite that emotional code. You can retrain your nervous system, not by force, not by pretending nothing affects you, but by pausing and paying attention. This is what the Stoics and even modern psychology have always pointed to. There's a power in the pause. In that small, sacred space between stimulus and response, you reclaim your freedom. That's where you get to choose. Do I repeat the pattern, or do I rise above it? Carl Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. Let that sink in. Most people walk around thinking they're making choices, but really, they're just reacting to their past over and over again and calling it personality or destiny. But awareness changes everything. Imagine this. Someone criticizes you unfairly. Your old pattern says, defend, attack, withdraw. But this time, you pause. You feel the heat rise in your chest, but instead of reacting, you observe it like a wave. You ask, what story am I telling myself about this? Maybe it's, I'm not respected, or I'm not good enough. And suddenly you realize, this isn't about them. It's about an old wound you're still carrying. That moment, that awareness, that's power. Not explosive power, but anchored power. The kind that doesn't shake in the face of storms. Here's the truth most people never learn. Emotional intelligence isn't something you're born with. It's a skill, a practice. Like lifting weights or learning a new language, it grows with repetition and intention. It's not about suppressing emotions. It's not about pretending you don't care. It's about learning how to feel fully, without losing yourself in the feeling. Every time you pause, every time you sit with discomfort without immediately reacting, you rewire your brain. You build new pathways. You send your nervous system a signal. We are safe. We don't have to go to war every time something hurts. And over time, your triggers lose their grip. Not because life gets easier, but because you get stronger. You become someone who doesn't just react, but responds with wisdom. Think about someone you deeply admire, someone with real inner strength. Chances are, they're not the loudest in the room. They're not the ones who always have to be right. They're the ones who make you feel calm, just by being calm. That kind of person isn't special. They're simply practiced. They've learned to slow down, to breathe, to observe instead of explode. And so can you. So the next time you feel the pull, the urge to snap, shut down, or spiral, remember, that urge isn't your truth. It's just a shadow of your old story. But you're writing a new one now, and every pause, every deep breath, every moment of awareness is a sentence in the story of who you're becoming. Have you ever noticed? It's not the event itself that hurts you. It's the story your mind tells about it. Someone doesn't reply to your message. Instantly, the thoughts start running. They're ignoring me. I must have said something wrong. I always mess things up, but pause. What actually happened? They didn't reply. That's it. Everything else. You added. This is the quiet trap of the human mind. We don't react to reality. We react to the meaning we attach to it. And most of that meaning is borrowed from the past. That silence from a friend. It hits the same nerve your father did when he withdrew after getting angry. That rejection at work. It echoes the feeling of not being chosen in school. That tone your partner used. It feels like a fight from 5 years ago, not a moment from today. The mind works like a filter, and unless we clean it, it distorts everything. A completely neutral moment, a pause, a delay, a glance, can feel like betrayal. If your emotional lens is cracked by old pain. But here's where things shift. Once you see this, you get to choose. You get to ask, what if this isn't about me? What if they're just having a rough day? What if there's nothing wrong? I just don't have the full story yet. Let me give you an example. Imagine texting a friend something meaningful. You wait, no reply. 1 hour, 5 hours, a whole day. Your default thought might be, they're avoiding me. But what if they dropped their phone, got caught up at work? Or maybe they read your message and didn't know how to respond thoughtfully just yet. See, the first story feels like rejection. The second story feels like understanding. The event didn't change, but the meaning did. And when you master that shift, you unlock a kind of psychological freedom most people never experience. This is called reframing. And it's not just a mental trick. It's a way of reclaiming your peace. You're not lying to yourself. You're choosing a wiser interpretation. One that serves your growth, not your fear. Because here's the truth. You can't always control what happens, but you can always decide what it means. That's where power lives. Not in trying to change other people or fix every situation, but in learning to clean the filter of your mind, so you see things more clearly, more compassionately, more truthfully. Marcus Aurelius, the Stoic emperor, once wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it. And this you have the power to revoke at any moment." Think about that. You can revoke the suffering, not by denying reality, but by questioning the version of it your mind is feeding you. So next time you feel triggered, ask, what am I telling myself right now? Is this the only way to see this moment? Is there a kinder, truer, more empowering story I can choose? That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's emotional maturity. That's how you stop being a prisoner of your past and become a conscious creator of your present. Because you don't live in what happens. You live in what you believe about what happens. Change the belief, and you change everything. There's a tiny moment that could change your life. It's not dramatic. It doesn't announce itself. But it's always there, waiting. That moment is the pause, the space between what happens and how you respond. Someone says something cruel. Your body tightens. Your ego prepares its defense. But then, you pause. You don't fire back. And in that space, something powerful shifts. You don't become the reaction. You become the observer. This space, this pause, is not weakness. It is your superpower. You see, your brain is wired for survival. The amygdala, your emotional alarm system, is fast. It lights up in microseconds when it senses a threat. But logic? That comes a bit later. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reason, reflection, and higher thinking, takes a little more time to show up. So if you react instantly, chances are, it's not you reacting. It's your defense system. But if you pause, even for just a few seconds, you give your wiser self a chance to step in. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." And what shapes your estimate? Your mind in the moment. A moment that begins with pause. Let's be real. It's easy to react, to snap back, to defend. But silence, strategic, intentional silence, that's strength. Not silence as in suppression. Not silence that swallows your truth, but silence that holds your truth with clarity and grace. You don't need to respond to every insult. You don't owe anyone a piece of your peace. And here's the beautiful twist. Silence disarms people who try to manipulate you. They rely on your reaction. They feed on your energy. But when you stay still, when you don't give them what they want, they lose power. You become unreadable, untouchable. It confuses them. Because most people are open books of reactivity. But when you master the pause, you become a closed chapter. One that only you get to open. Imagine someone pushes your buttons, intentionally or not. You feel the fire rising. But instead of acting on that fire, you breathe. You take a step back, mentally or physically. You let logic catch up to emotion. Maybe you respond, maybe you don't. But whatever you do, it comes from a grounded place, not a wounded one. That's when people start noticing. You don't get rattled like you used to. You don't explain yourself to every opinion. You don't dance for validation because you've learned the power of stillness. And this power doesn't make you cold, it makes you wise. It gives you the gift of clarity, the ability to tell what's truly worth your time, energy, and words, and what's not. So the next time life tests you, when someone triggers you, accuses you, misreads you, try this. Pause. Let silence speak for you. Let it reveal what needs no defense. Let it protect what doesn't need to be proven. Because in that space, you're not just surviving, you're leading yourself. And that is real freedom. Let's talk about something that sounds simple, but quietly shapes the quality of your entire life. Boundaries. Not the kind you draw on paper, not walls to push people away, but invisible lines that protect your energy, your peace, and your clarity. Because here's the truth most people don't realize. Peace without boundaries is fragile. It only lasts until someone else walks in and takes too much. You see, not everyone deserves full access to you. Not everyone should get a front row seat to your mind, your time, your emotions. And yet, how often do we hand those things out? Just to avoid discomfort, we say yes when we mean no. We explain ourselves over and over, hoping to be understood. We tolerate behavior that drains us until we crash and call it burnout. Sound familiar? That's not kindness. That's self-abandonment dressed up as politeness. Boundaries are not about being cold or distant. They're not walls. They're filters, intentional, thoughtful, and protective. They don't shut people out. They simply decide who and what gets in. The Stoics didn't write long manifestos about boundaries, but they lived them, quietly, firmly. They taught, control what you can, let go of what you can't. And one of the most powerful things you can control is who has access to your emotional world. When you start practicing boundaries, something subtle shifts. You stop explaining your worth. You stop chasing approval. You stop leaking energy into relationships, conversations, or roles that don't nourish you. You begin to understand. Just because someone asks for your time doesn't mean you owe it. Just because someone demands a reaction doesn't mean you must give it. Let me give you an example. Someone texts you, pressuring you for an immediate answer. In the past, maybe you'd feel obligated to reply, explain, apologize for the delay. But now, you pause. You ask, is this urgent? Or is this their discomfort trying to become mine? You reply when you're ready, without guilt. That's a boundary. Or maybe a friend constantly dumps their emotional chaos on you. You've listened for years, but now it's costing you your own peace. You don't cut them off, but you shift the tone. You say, I care about you, but I can't be your only place to process. That's not harsh, that's healthy. Because here's what no one tells you. The people who love and respect you will adapt to your boundaries. The ones who don't, we're benefiting from your lack of them. When you finally stop making yourself smaller to keep the peace, you find a deeper peace, one that doesn't rely on anyone's approval. A quiet, anchored peace, the kind the Stoics lived by. The kind that doesn't shout, but doesn't shake either. So ask yourself today, where in your life are you saying yes when your body screams no? Who gets access to you? Simply because you've never paused to ask if they should. What would it feel like to live in a space that's peaceful, not because it's quiet, but because it's protected? Because real peace isn't just found, it's built. And the first brick is a boundary. Let's talk about something that might sound cold at first, but in reality, it's one of the most compassionate things you can do for your soul. Detachment. Not the kind that shuts down, not the kind that says, "I don't care," but the kind that whispers gently, "This matters, but not more than my peace." See, most of us live emotionally tangled in everything. We absorb the moods of others. We overthink what someone said or didn't say. We chase closure, explanations, validation from people who were never equipped to give it. It's like walking through life with your heart wide open, but no filter. Everything sticks to you. Every glance, every comment, every silence. But here's the truth. You were not designed to carry all of this. Not every emotion that passes your way belongs to you. Not every situation requires your energy. Detachment is the quiet practice of observing without absorbing. It's not apathy. It's clarity. It's knowing what to hold and what to let pass through. Think of it like standing at the edge of a river. You can watch the water rush by. You can even feel it spray. But you don't have to jump in and get swept away every time a wave crashes. That's what most people do, emotionally. They get pulled into other people's storms, then wonder why they feel lost and drained. Detachment is choosing to stay on the shore. It's realizing, I see what's happening. I feel it, but I don't have to become it. Let me give you an example. Maybe someone you love is acting distant. The old you would spiral, rereading texts, rewriting conversations in your head, trying to fix something you don't understand. But the detached you breathe. You remind yourself, their distance is about them, my peace is about me. You still care, you still love, but you don't cling. Because clinging is not connection. It's fear in disguise. And fear, when left unexamined, leads to leaks. Energy leaks. You know the feeling? When your mind replays an argument from days ago. When you keep explaining yourself to someone who isn't even listening. When you give your best to people who only meet you halfway. Detachment is how you seal those leaks. It's how you stop bleeding emotionally in places that don't deserve your wound. It's how you protect the sacred space of your mind from becoming a dumping ground for everyone else's chaos. You begin to learn the difference between what is yours to carry and what is only yours to witness. It's not easy, because society has taught us that caring means overextending, that love means sacrifice, that peace comes after explanation, closure, or control. But what if peace isn't found at the end of those roads? What if peace is simply what's left when you stop trying to control things you were never meant to? Detachment doesn't mean you stop feeling. It means you feel wisely, with boundaries, with discernment. You become the calm in the chaos, not because chaos disappeared, but because you no longer let it live in your head rent-free. So the next time you find yourself spiraling, over someone's silence, over what didn't happen, over the why that never arrived, try this: pause, breathe, and say gently to yourself, "This matters, but not more than my peace." That's not weakness, that's wisdom. And that's how detachment sets you free. Sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all, not because you're weak, but because you're so rooted in your peace that nothing outside of you can shake it. This is the kind of silence most people don't understand. They mistake it for passivity, for surrender, for not caring. But in truth, silence, when chosen intentionally, is rebellion. It's dominance. It's restraint in a world addicted to noise, reaction, and proving who's right. Let me ask you, when someone insults you, do you have to reply? When someone gossips about you, do you owe them your outrage? Or can you stay still, knowing their chaos is not your burden? You see, the world teaches us to be loud when we're hurt, to explain when we're misunderstood, to react when we're provoked. But the Stoics taught something radically different. They taught the quiet discipline of silence, not the silence of suppression, but the silence of self-mastery. Because when someone throws dirt at you and you don't even flinch, it says more than 1,000 words ever could. It says, I am not on your level of chaos. I see you, I hear you, but I do not become you. That is strength. Think about it. When someone gossips about you, what happens if you stay silent? They're left alone with their words. And often, that silence becomes a mirror they can't escape. They're forced to sit with what they said, without your energy to distract them. Or when someone tries to bait you into an argument, and you don't take the bait, that's control. That's dignity. Every moment you choose silence over reaction, you build a deeper kind of power, one that no one can see, but everyone can feel. It's the kind of power that confuses manipulators. It frustrates gossipers. It humbles critics, because they can't use you as fuel. And without your reaction, their fire dies. You no longer dance to the rhythm of their dysfunction. You create your own music, one that's slow, grounded, and intentional. Now this doesn't mean you never speak up. There's a time for silence, and a time for voice. But here's the difference. When your voice comes after silence, it carries more weight. It's no longer reaction. It's response, rooted not in fear, but in clarity. It's like watching a monk speak after hours of stillness. Every word matters. Every word lands. And that's the discipline. Learning to hold your tongue, not because you're scared, but because your peace is too sacred to waste. So the next time someone tries to pull you into their storm, pause. Stay grounded and ask yourself, do I need to say this? Or am I just trying to win something that doesn't matter? Because silence isn't weakness, it's wisdom. It's the mark of someone who's mastered the hardest discipline of all, themselves. So keep your peace. Let them talk. Let them assume. Because while they burn their energy trying to disturb you, you're building an inner world they can't touch. And that is real power. There comes a moment in your life when the storm still rages, but you don't flinch anymore. It's not because you've stopped feeling. It's not because you've become cold or numb. It's because you've become clear. Clear about who you are. Clear about what deserves your attention. Clear about what no longer gets a seat at your emotional table. This is the quiet shift from reaction to response, from needing to control the world to mastering yourself. You've probably noticed it in people who seem unshakable. They're not loud. They don't dominate the room. But something about their energy is solid. They walk into chaos and it bends around them. They don't chase arguments. They don't over-explain. They don't give their peace away for free. And the truth is, they weren't born like that. They became that way. Through small decisions, through quiet moments of restraint, through choosing silence over drama, space over reactivity, clarity over chaos. You see, real power isn't about controlling others. It's about not being controlled, not even by your own emotions. Imagine that for a moment. Something triggers you, but you don't react immediately. You pause. You breathe. You ask yourself, does this deserve my energy? And most of the time, it doesn't. That's what emotional mastery looks like. Not a life without challenges, but a mind that doesn't hand over its peace so easily. It's when someone insults you, And you don't need to defend yourself, because you know who you are. You've outgrown the need to prove it. It's when someone misunderstands you, and you let them, because your truth no longer depends on being seen. It's when life throws the same test at you, and this time, you don't take the bait. You've updated your inner operating system. You've replaced the reflex to react with the wisdom to choose. The ancient Stoics spoke of this over and over again, that the only true freedom is inner freedom, the freedom to stay calm in crisis, the freedom to respond with intention, the freedom to let the world be loud while you remain quiet and rooted. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. And that strength, it's not flashy, it won't go viral, but it will carry you through life in a way nothing else can. So here you are, not because the world has gotten easier, but because you've gotten stronger, clearer, untouchable. Not untouchable in the sense that nothing's you, but in the sense that nothing owns you anymore. You've reclaimed your mind. You've reclaimed your time. You've reclaimed the energy you used to waste on things that no longer matter. That's not ego. That's evolution. So the next time the world comes knocking with its chaos, remember who you've become. The one who pauses. The one who protects their peace. The one who knows that real control is inner control. You've done the work. And now, you're untouchable. There's a moment we all know. Something small happens, and your whole body reacts like it's under attack. Someone forgets to respond to a message. Your partner sounds a little distant. A coworker makes a joke that lands just a little too sharp. And suddenly, your chest tightens, your thoughts speed up. You feel the old panic, the heat, the urge to defend or disappear. But here's the truth no one teaches us early enough. Most of what we call triggers aren't about what's happening right now. They're echoes. Echoes of old pain, old stories, old wounds that never got the closure they needed. And that's not a weakness. That's your nervous system running on an old script, one written during times when you weren't safe emotionally or physically. So now, even when nothing is truly threatening, your body still rings the alarm. That's not brokenness. That's autopilot. But here's where it gets powerful, because while trauma may be automatic, healing is intentional. And it starts with one very quiet but revolutionary act: awareness. The next time you feel a surge of emotion, anger, shame, fear, instead of reacting, pause, breathe, and ask yourself, where have I felt this before? You might be surprised at what rises to the surface. Maybe that comment from your coworker feels like criticism from your father. Maybe the silence from your friend reminds you of childhood abandonment. Maybe your partner's distraction echoes a moment where you felt invisible growing up. What's happening in the present becomes a portal to what needs healing from the past. And here's the shift. When you start recognizing the origin of your emotional response, you begin to break the loop. Instead of exploding, you examine. Instead of shutting down, you stay curious. Instead of lashing out, you lean in and listen. Every moment you do that, every time you pause before reacting, you're rewiring your mind. You're teaching your nervous system, we're not in danger, we're safe now. And over time, the things that once triggered you lose their power. Not because life stops being hard, but because you stop abandoning yourself every time it is. Your trigger becomes your teacher. What once ruled you becomes a signal, not to fight, not to flee, but to heal. Let me say that again. Your triggers aren't signs of brokenness. They're invitations to come home to yourself. We live in a culture obsessed with control, controlling outcomes, people, perceptions. But the only real control you'll ever have is the ability to sit with discomfort without letting it own you. That's mastery, that's evolution. So the next time something stirs a reaction inside you, before you respond, ask, is this about now or is this about then? Because that one question can change everything. It can turn pain into clarity, reaction into reflection, and survival mode into conscious living. You are not your past, but your past is asking to be felt so it can finally be released. And every time you pause, breathe, and observe, you're not just surviving a moment. You're rewriting the ones that came before it. That is the real work. That is inner freedom. Here's a quiet truth that can completely change the way you move through life. You don't owe anyone a reaction, not your explanation, not your emotional labor, not even your presence in conversations designed to pull you out of alignment. In a world where everyone is so quick to speak, to post, to defend, to justify, choosing not to react isn't avoidance. It's wisdom, it's clarity, it's strength disguised as stillness. Think about it. Every time you react, you're spending energy. And energy is a currency far more precious than money, because once it's gone, you don't get it back. So the real question becomes, who or what is worth your reaction? Is that internet comment really worth your peace? Is that passive-aggressive text worth your nervous system? Is that familiar argument, the one you've had 10 times before, truly worth your breath again? When you stop reacting to everything that pokes at you, something powerful happens. You become less predictable. You stop being a puppet to other people's projections. You stop dancing to the beat of dysfunction. Because the stronger you become inside, the quieter you become outside. People will notice. They'll wonder why they can't get under your skin like they used to. They'll try to provoke, to bait, to pull you back into the chaos, because that's where they feel in control. But your silence, your non-reaction, that confuses people who rely on your emotional engagement to fuel their own drama. And here's what they don't expect. That your silence isn't emptiness. It's full of intention, full of clarity, full of boundaries they didn't know you had. You see, not every situation deserves your commentary. Not every invitation to chaos needs an RSVP. Not every fire requires your oxygen. This isn't emotional shutdown. It's emotional sovereignty. It's what the Stoics lived by. Don't explain. Don't complain. Just live in alignment with your values, your clarity, and your inner peace. And let the world adjust itself accordingly. I'm not saying be cold or disconnected, but what I am saying is this: there is power in restraint. There is wisdom in knowing when your voice would only feed noise, and choosing, instead, to remain still. Because not all battles are yours. Not all opinions need to be corrected. And not all noise deserves a reply. This is hard in a culture that rewards outrage and punishes stillness. But remember, you are not here to perform your peace. You are here to protect it. So the next time someone pushes your buttons, and you feel that rise of heat in your chest, pause, breathe, ask yourself, is this mine to carry? Or is this trying to carry me away? Most of the time, you'll find that silence is the clearest statement you can make. And walking away is the most powerful move on the board. So let them wonder why you didn't reply. Let them sit with their own energy. You have nothing to prove. And peace, once protected, becomes priceless. If you've made it this far, chances are something inside you is shifting. Not dramatically, not with fireworks, but quietly, like the way the ocean changes tides without noise. You're starting to realize you don't need to perform to prove your worth. You don't need to react to be powerful. You don't need to sacrifice your peace for temporary validation. So today, I invite you, not just to watch another video, not just to hear another idea, but to embody this one simple truth. I choose peace over performance. Say it. Breathe it in. Let it echo inside you. Because when you make that choice, truly make it, something unlocks. Your reactions slow down. Your need to explain fades. Your clarity sharpens. You begin walking differently through the world, more rooted, more free. And that's what this whole journey is about, isn't it? Not being perfect, not being unshakable, but becoming more aware, more intentional. Bit by bit, reclaiming the power you once handed away in moments of panic, people-pleasing, or pain. So here's your reflection for today. What's one trigger, one pattern, one wound that you're ready to stop feeding? What's one moment where you'll pause instead of perform? Because that is where the work begins. Not out there, but in here. If you're walking this path, the path of stoic calm, emotional mastery, and quiet inner strength, then I'd love for you to stay on this journey with me. Subscribe, not just to this channel, but to your own growth, to your peace, to your future self, the one who watches storms roll in without being pulled into them. We don't need to fight everything. We just need to see it clearly and respond like someone who knows their peace is priceless. You are not here to perform. You are here to be free. So let's walk forward in silence, in clarity, and in strength. And remember, you don't owe the world your reaction. You owe yourself your peace.